Well, trade with China will be at the top of the agenda, of course, when President Trump arrives in Beijing later on Wednesday. He's called that trade deficit horrible, remember. Our China correspondent Tom Mackenzie joins us now from just outside the Forbidden City in the Chinese capital. Tom, key areas of focus for both President Trump and President Xi.
Yeah, Heidi, absolutely. So key areas of focus, as you say, will be trade and will be that deficit that Malcolm was just talking about, that more than $300 billion deficit, at least according to the IMF. That's been a bugbear for President Trump, and he's expected to pressure China to take action to try to move that in the other direction. Of course, North Korea is going to be firmly at the top of the agenda as well for both parties here, and the US are expected to pressure the Chinese to continue to enact the sanctions that are being put in place, to continue to enforce those strictly, possibly also to put in further unilateral steps or take further additional measures to pressure the North Koreans. The Chinese Commerce Ministry minister has told Bloomberg already that on the trade front, they're going to be flagging this import fair that's going to be set up November of next year to encourage more imports into China. They may also try and change the tax regime a little bit for foreign enterprises to make it a bit easier for foreign companies to operate here. From the Chinese perspective, they'll want to see from the US a relaxation of imports or exports of high tech to China. There's been this focus on national security concerns which ticked up under President Trump that's pressured these high-tech exports that China wants to get hold of. They may also try to see if the US will sign on to any document around or supporting or acknowledging China's core interests, so Tibet, Taiwan, the South China Sea. We're expecting President Trump to arrive here in Beijing around 2:45 local time. He's then going to be taken fairly shortly after that arrival to the Forbidden City behind me for a private tour with his wife, the First Lady, and with President Xi and his wife. They'll then dine in the Forbidden City. The Chinese ambassador to the US has said this is a state visit plus, so expecting to roll out the red carpet, a lot of pomp and ceremony. The Chinese will be trying to play to Trump's ego on this visit.
We heard from former US ambassador to China, Gary Locke, just a short while ago, asking him about the sort of deals that might be made. What are we expecting? Soybeans, Boeing, etc. on the table?
Yeah, Rich, that's right. So there's about 40 executives, US executives, who will be accompanying President Trump on this visit. We are expecting a flurry of multi-billion-dollar deals. Those are likely to be signed tomorrow afternoon. We've got the state dinner tomorrow evening, and prior to that is the signing ceremony for a number of these deals. As you say, look for sectors: aviation, autos, financial services. We've heard, for example, that GE may be doing a deal around funding for the Belt and Road Initiative. Those are some of these big deals. Goldman Sachs as well, likely to be signing on for a $5 billion investment program with China's sovereign wealth fund for manufacturing, to fund manufacturing in the US. We may, on the trade front as well, see China lowering barriers to some sectors, potentially the auto sector, potentially financial services as well. So those are key areas to look for. Well, yes, so big deals are expected, some headline deals tomorrow. In terms of the real structural shift in this trade relationship, though, and the geopolitics, we aren't expecting a big move. What the Chinese are likely to do is give President Trump some key takeaways that he can tweet back to his community back in the US, some wins for President Trump, but we don't expect to see a big structural shift in the trade relationship.